to Ghetto Course History.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Yesenia, and today we're talking about Thaddeus Stevens.
Thaddeus Stevens was born in Danville, Vermont on April 4th, 1792. He was the second of four boys whose parents were Sarah and Joshua Stevens. Thaddeus was born with two club feet that made it very difficult for him to walk. In the late 1700s, any physical deformity was seen as a sign from God that the family had committed some serious secret sin. Such a deformity was called the mark of the devil, and as a consequence, the family was ridiculed and shunned.
Sarah, Thaddeus' mother, was a kind woman with great energy, a strong will, and was deeply religious. She worked day and night to keep her family together. Thaddeus loved his mother and was totally devoted to her throughout his life. Sarah realized that the only hope for her eldest two sons was education. She scraped enough money together to enroll them in the nearby one-room Peacham school. Thaddeus was frail, poor, limped severely, and was not particularly attractive. He was teased and taught mercilessly by other children throughout his childhood. He became very shy and extremely sensitive. Thaddeus excelled in school, and it became obvious that he had great intelligence and a special aptitude for debating. After graduating from Peacham, Thaddeus was accepted at Dartmouth College. He was the poorest student at the college, never having enough money for books, let alone money to go out and socialize with his rich classmates. As a result, he was an outcast, just as he had been throughout his childhood.
Thaddeus Stevens graduated from Dartmouth and accepted a teaching position at a one-room school in York, Pennsylvania. He studied law in the evenings and passed the bar exam in a year. He moved to Gettysburg to begin his practice. In his first year, he successfully argued 9 out of 10 cases before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Word of his ability and success spread throughout the region. He was rich with clients. After 5 years, he owned a house and lot, several other properties, and was able to purchase his mother a 250-acre farm with 14 cows.
In 1833, Thaddeus Stevens was elected to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. He did not run as a Democrat, but as an anti-Mason. During his time in the General Assembly, the accomplishment Thaddeus Stevens was most proud of was his effort to institute free public education. In 1830s America, there were practically no free public schools. Those that existed were found in New England and in large cities. Only affluent families could afford to send their children to school. When a free school bill was introduced in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, Stevens became an ardent supporter. He collaborated with Governor Wolfe to get the bill passed. However, when the legislators turned to their districts, there was an uproar. Over 32,000 individuals signed a petition to repeal the new legislation. The General Assembly was recalled and went into session to reconsider. The Senate quickly passed a repeal bill, which went to the House. Stevens worked to defend the original bill. There was standing room only, as most of the Senate filled the gallery. Stevens began his speech by using statistics to show how a state system of free schools was more efficient and ultimately less costly than the existing system.
He said the Repeal Act should be called an act for branding and marking the poor, so that they may be known from the rich and the proud. He went on, I know how large a portion of the community can scarcely feel any sympathy with or understand the necessities of the poor. The rich appreciate the exquisite feelings which they enjoy when they see their children receiving the boon of education and rising in intellectual superiority above the clogs which hereditary poverty has cast upon them.
After he finished, he limped back to his seat to the cheers of the entire assembly. The House suspended the rules and amended the repeal bill into an act that actually strengthened the original Free School Act and passed it. The Senate immediately followed suit. The result was to give Pennsylvania a statewide free public school system an entire generation before New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and the entire South. Stevens is referred to as the savior of free public school education in Pennsylvania, and why the state created Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology as a tribute to Thaddeus Stevens. Melissa, does that mean that all the schoolwork I've put in is thanks to Thaddeus Stevens?
Yes, little Yesenia. From Thaddeus' torment and discrimination throughout his life, he was always a benevolent character regarding those who suffered from poverty and discrimination. He gave money without limit, regardless of race, religion, national origin, or political affiliation. He had standing orders with his physician and cobbler to treat all deformed and disabled children at his expense. At the time of his death, he had over 100,000 in notes from individuals he had loaned money to and never been repaid. In his will, he left to establish a school for the relief and refuge of homeless indigent orphans. This original bequest has evolved into Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology.
He defended and supported Indians, Seventh-day Adventists, Mormons, Jews, Chinese, and women. However, the defense of runaway or fugitive slaves gradually began to consume the greatest amount of his time, until the abolition of slavery became his primary political and personal focus. He was actively involved in the Underground Railroad, assisting runaway slaves to get to Canada as many as 16 times a week.
Thaddeus Stevens was elected to the United States House of Representatives from 1849 to 1853 and from 1859 until his death in 1868. During this time, Stevens had become the most powerful congressman in Washington.
Stevens' legislative legacy is the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution, which serve as the basis for all civil rights legislation.
Stevens drafted his own version of the 13th Amendment, but when it failed to gain support, he shepherded a more popular version through Congress. It ended slavery in all states, whereas the Emancipation Proclamation only abolished slavery in the Confederacy.
Stevens also guided the 14th Amendment through Congress. This amendment established a national citizenry with all citizens given equality before the law, which no state could change.
Thaddeus hated Andrew Johnson, mainly because of their opposing views on practically everything.
Andrew Johnson said that, quote, blacks possess less capacity for government than any other race of people. No independent government or any form has ever been successful in their hands. On the contrary, wherever they have been left to their own devices, they have shown a constant tendency to relapse into barbarism. Andrew Johnson, the 17th President of the U.S., December 1867, message to Congress.
Stevens hated Johnson and worked to have him impeached. Though the final vote fell one vote short in the Senate, Johnson was weakened permanently and reduced to a figurehead for the remainder of his term, being replaced by Ulysses Grant in 1868.
Stevens did not live to see the passage of the 15th Amendment. However, most would agree he inspired it. It guaranteed all male citizens the right to vote.
Thaddeus Stevens died on August 11, 1868. The public expression of grief in Washington was second only to Lincoln's. 20,000 people, one half whom were black free men, attended his funeral in Lancaster.
Stevens dreamed of a socially just world where unearned privilege did not exist. He knew that having a different perspective can enrich society. He understood that differences among people should not be oppressed but celebrated.